Now, the latest ITV news, where you are.
Good evening. The border region joins the nation in mourning His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, who's died at the age of 99.
Tributes are being paid across Cumbria and the south of Scotland in memory of Prince Philip.
This was a man who exemplified the idea of duty, and today we greatly mourn his passing.
Tonight we'll be looking back at the Duke's connection to our region as consort to the Queen,
as well as remembering how his love of carriage driving brought him here for many years and saw him forge lasting friendships.
His presence, I don't know, there's something magnetic about him. When he walked in a room, he lit the room up, you know.
Good evening. Tonight we reflect on the life of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, the places he's visited and the people he met and befriended in Cumbria and the south of Scotland. Good evening. Tonight, tributes to the Duke of Edinburgh from people across the North East and North Yorkshire after his death at the age of 99.
A flag flies at half-mast high above York Minster, one of the countless tributes across our region to the Duke of Edinburgh, whose death at 99 years old was announced at noon today.
Below, inside this magnificent building, candles have been lit to mark the occasion. The Archbishop of York has been leading prayers since news of Prince Philip's passing reached the nation. Here and at homes, workplaces and other places of worship, people have been quietly reflecting upon a life dedicated to public service.
Good evening from Christine and myself. In our programme this evening, tributes to the Duke of Edinburgh from people right across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire.
During his many years of service as consort to Her Majesty the Queen, the Duke came to the region numerous times.
It is a day of mourning across the east of England. Flags at half-mast to mark the death of the Duke of Edinburgh at the age of 99.
Tonight we join the region in paying tribute to Prince Philip, the Queen's husband and consort for more than 70 years.
Welcome to ITV News Anglia as we mark the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh.
He was an extraordinary man. He made his home in the east of England after he retired. We will be exploring his legacy with our guests around the region.
We have reporters at key locations with particularly strong links to Prince Philip and where he immersed himself in local life.
At Sandringham in Norfolk, where the royal family spend their Christmas and winter holidays.
Here in Cambridge, the Duke served as Chancellor of this city's great university for 35 years.
I'm in Westminster getting reaction from our MPs who've been paying tribute this afternoon.
Prince Philip had a great love of wildlife and for conservation and was a huge supporter of the work done here at Whipsnade Zoo in Bedfordshire.
Good evening. This is a special edition of ITV News Meridian as the region reflects on the life of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh.
A royal borough remembers a favourite Duke. We're live at Windsor where he passed away peacefully this morning.
the talented officer cadet who became Lord High Admiral, celebrating the Duke's distinguished naval career and his connections to the South Coast.
An extraordinary life of dedicated service. The Archbishop of Canterbury leads tributes. We're in the city with more reflections.
And a lifetime by the Queen's side, the royal romance and the honeymoon on a Hampshire estate. Good evening to you. It has been an historic day of reflection, remembering the life of the Duke of Edinburgh. Buckingham Palace announced his death at midday at the age of 99. Prince Philip passed away peacefully at Windsor Castle this morning, just 2 months before his 100th birthday.
The Queen and Duke had been spending lockdown there. It was one of their favourite homes and where they decided to raise their children.
The Duke had been by the Queen's side for as long as many of us can remember, married for 73 years. His presence one of steadfast support. Well, tonight we look back at his life and his links to our region.
First to Windsor, where the Queen is this evening. Mike Pearce is there for us. Mike, and people arriving to pay their respects.
Hello and a warm welcome to our special coverage this evening as we reflect on the life of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. Tributes of admiration, affection and respect have been paid by people across Wales to Prince Philip, whose death was announced earlier today. Flags at Welsh landmarks and public buildings have been lowered, including those in the capital city and here at Cardiff Castle.
Good evening. The West Country has been united in mourning today, paying tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh, who has died.
His Royal Highness made dozens of visits to the region during his time by the Queen's side. His true sense of duty felt across the generations. His last visit to the region was in 2016 when he visited Poundbury in Dorset for the unveiling of a statue of the Queen Mother. Today, the Duchy of Cornwall flag flew there in his memory.
Flags are flying at half-mast at cathedrals right across our region as they prepare for special services to remember the longest-serving Prince Consort. So too at West Country military bases, including Norton Manor Camp near Taunton, to pay tribute to the former Captain General of the Royal Marines. And in Tetbury, the nearest town to the Gloucestershire home of his son Prince Charles.
We'll be live there later in the programme, but first David Wood reports on the reaction across the region as the news was announced of the Duke of Edinburgh's death.
Good evening. People across the Channel Islands are remembering Prince Philip, who has died at the age of 99. Last month, he returned home to Windsor Castle after spending 4 weeks in hospital.
Tonight, we will hear from those who met him on his many visits here and look at the lasting impact he has had here. But first, let's look at how we all heard the news of the Duke's death.
Hello and welcome. You're watching ITV Live at 6.
Good evening. These are the stories making the headlines.
Northern Ireland mourns the death of Prince Philip.
Senior figures from across the political divide here pay tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh.
I offer my deepest sympathies and condolences to Her Majesty the Queen and to all the members of the royal family.
Whilst they may be public figures, they are also a family that are hurting, so I just wanted to extend my condolences to them. Also to all those people in this community who come from the English tradition.
And people here reflect on a life dedicated to royal duty.
There's a big gap in the country now
and it's a very sad occasion for everybody.
He's been a massive part of the royal family. He's been very loyal to the Queen and the royal family, so a huge loss to everybody.
Also tonight, further condemnation after more disturbances on the streets of Belfast.
Good evening. Tributes have been paid to Prince Philip, who died today, aged 99. The Duke of Edinburgh was the longest serving consort of a reigning British monarch.
Prince Philip retired from royal duties in August 2017 and his death comes just weeks.
Tonight, we remember Prince Philip's life in London. The palace announces the Duke of Edinburgh died this morning at the age of 99. Londoners share their memories of the royal who spent decades dedicating his life to service.
He was just so real and he came across like he was just himself. So for me, it was just like, wow, like he's interesting.
We're here at Buckingham Palace this evening and across the capital as well.
Here in Windsor, where the Duke died, people have been arriving all afternoon to lay flowers.
And we're on board the Cutty Sark with tributes to the man known as the Baron of Greenwich.
And we look at one of the Duke's favourite hobbies, carriage riding. Good evening. He's the man who's been a constant by the Queen's side for almost 70 years. And tonight, the capital has been paying its own tributes to Prince Philip, who's died at the age of 99. Since Buckingham Palace made the announcement this morning, a steady stream of people have been arriving here behind me to lay flowers to remember a life long lived.
The nation mourns His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who has died at the age of 99. Buckingham Palace made the announcement just after midday today, saying the Duke passed away peacefully at Windsor Castle. He was by the Queen's side during 73 years of marriage. Today, she expressed her deep sorrow at the loss of her beloved husband, while the Prime Minister led the nation's tributes.
He helped to steer the royal family and the monarchy so that it remains an institution indisputably vital to the balance and happiness of our national life.
He was like a grandfather to the nation, wasn't he? Lovable, full of duty, but a man and one that had compassion.
Prince Philip was the longest-serving royal consort in British history. He will be remembered for his unwavering support for the woman he loved and served.
He has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
Well, tonight we will look back at their life together and what it meant for the royal family and the country. Plus, his great passion for his pastimes and the legacy his charity work will leave behind.
I owe a lot to the Duke of Edinburgh, and I just want to say thank you for changing my life pretty much.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale from Buckingham Palace.
And good evening from Buckingham Palace, where the flags are at half-mast tonight in memory of the Duke of Edinburgh. The Queen, who's long called him her strength and stay, described her deep sorrow at his death. The couple had been married for 73 years, and the Duke was Britain's longest-serving royal consort. He passed away peacefully at Windsor Castle this morning, where he had only recently returned after a month-long stay in hospital. The Duke was just a few months shy of his 100th birthday. Tributes have been flooding in from around the world today, reflecting the Duke's huge influence and legacy. Well, here, the Prime Minister said Prince Philip had earned the affection of generations. The Archbishop of Canterbury said he'd always put the interests of others first. And in the first of our special reports this evening, here's our royal editor Chris Shipp on the warm tributes tonight to the Duke.